Is it the end of the world? I would say yes, because I want to look at how the Bible really says that it's the end of the world. And, we were just born at such a time to be at the end. 2,000 years ago, maybe you couldn't say it's the end of the world. Now, many people sort of thought it was going to be, but it's just kind of weird to us because we were born, sort of before the end. I don't think there are going to be more people born throughout all of eternity, but I could be wrong. Space, if it's as big as they say it is, can house a lot of people. But, how I traditionally look at the book of Revelation, it seems to describe, no more birth after the great white throne judgment. Everyone is judged, and the people who are alive and the angels are the only ones that are there. Now, could we make robots in the future? Possibly. Hey, I think that's a possibility, but that's not so much the discussion on this particular podcast. Today, I just want to talk about, what are some of the signs that we see we're reaching the end of the world. I believe the end of the world really starts in Revelation chapter 6. Now, again, Jesus has ultimately said we are in the last days, and we're in the time of the end. And so we have already reached that point, but there is still what scholars like to call the 7-year tribulation ahead. And so that is what brings in the real end of sin and evil. And so we're getting closer and closer to those days. Now, there was a time in my life where I wasn't really awake to Jesus returning or the end times. But then again, I wasn't even born 32 years ago. So there's something there. But still, do I think there will be kids, during the tribulation? I like to think that they will all be raptured. Those that are before the age of accountability, and there will only be, adults and maybe teenagers that are alive during the tribulation. But that is kind of speculation. But I believe the Bible gives strong evidence for the kids being raptured. I think it's an exciting time because, we were born right before we get to the new heavens and the new earth. Now, I believe there's still 1,000 years before the new heavens and the new earth, because I believe in a millennial reign of Jesus Christ where he reigns on the earth for 1,000 years. So technically, the end of the world is still 1,000 years away, but, we haven't got up to the millennial yet. But ultimately, after the tribulation, it's sort of really downhill from there, And so when I say the end of the world, I really talk about the tribulation. That's what I call the end of the world. And I think Jesus was speaking in such a way where he is talking about, the signs of the times that show we are getting closer and closer to that day. Now, I want to read in Matthew 24, and I think it would be good to just read this whole chapter, which I believe doesn't necessarily give us a full description of all of the end times, because obviously God still wrote the book of Revelation, and so clearly, God still had more to say after Matthew 24. But let's read it. As Jesus was leaving the temple grounds, his disciples pointed out to him the various temple buildings, but he responded, "Do you see all these buildings? I tell you the truth, they will be completely demolished. Not one stone will be left on top of another." Later, Jesus sat on the Mountain of Olives. His disciples came to him privately and said, "Tell us, when will all this happen? What sign will signal your return and the end of the world?" Jesus told them, "Don't let anyone mislead you, for many will come in my name, claiming I am the Messiah. They will deceive many, and you will hear of wars and threats of wars, but don't panic. Yes, these things must take place, but the end won't follow immediately. Nation will go to war against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in many parts of the world, but all this is only the first of the birth pains, and more to come. Then you will be arrested, persecuted, and killed. You will be hated all over the world because of you are my followers. And many will turn away from me and betray and hate each other. And many false prophets will appear and deceive many people. Sin will be rampant everywhere, and the love of many will grow cold. But the one who endures to the end will be saved. And the good news about the kingdom will be preached throughout the whole world, so that all nations will hear it, and then the end will come. The day is coming when you will see what Daniel the prophet spoke about, the sacrilegious object that causes desecration standing in the holy place. Then those in Judea must flee to the hills. A person out on the deck of a roof must not go down into the house to pack. A person out in the field must not return even to get a coat. How terrible it will be for pregnant women and for nursing mothers in those days. And pray that your flight will not be in winter or on the Sabbath. For there will be great anguish that at any time since the world began. For there will be great anguish than at any time since the world began, and it will never be so great again. In fact, unless the time of calamity is shortened, not a single person will survive, but it will be shortened for the sake of God's chosen ones. Then, if anyone tells you, "Look, here's the Messiah," or "There he is," don't believe it, for false messiahs and false prophets will rise up and perform great signs and wonders, so as to deceive, if possible, even God's chosen ones. See, I have warned you about this ahead of time. So if someone tells you, "Look, the Messiah is out in the desert," don't bother to go and look. Or, "Look, he is hiding there. He is hiding here." Don't believe it, for as the lightning flashes to the east and shines to the west, so it will be when the Son of Man comes. Just as the gathering of vultures shows there is a carcass nearby, so these signs indicate that the end is near. Immediately after the anguish of those days, the sun will be darkened, the moon will not give light, the stars will fall from the sky, and the powers of the heavens will be shaken. And then at last, the sign of the Son of Man is coming will appear in the heavens, and there will be great mourning among all the peoples of the earth. And they will see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. So I just read Matthew 24, 1 through 30. And so Jesus is saying that, we're going to hear of wars, rumors of wars. We're going to see signs of the birth pains. But he said those are just the beginning of birth pains, and there will be more to come. And then many will be betrayed, hated, and killed in the church, or the beginning of the tribulation. And then, what Daniel said will come true, and there'll be a sacrilegious object in the temple of God. And so, I believe Jesus, it can kind of sound like he's saying all of this is going to happen and we have to endure until the end of the tribulation, and we don't have to worry about a pre-trib rapture. But there's a lot of details that Revelation gives us that you don't know exactly where it fits into Matthew 24. And that's one key thing to note, is that when I think he's talking about God's chosen ones, I think he's talking about Israel and not necessarily focused on the church. And that's what I think.